What's up, everybody? I am back. Had to, deal with other stuff, when this news dropped a couple of days ago. But I finally got some time to sit and actually had a good chat about this. The Variety article that was posted recently about Disney announcing that they want to win back the male audience, specifically like the male Gen Z. And I want to read that article a bit and just, talk about it. Uh, Disney's Boy Trouble, which is kind of a weird title, but whatever. Studio seeks original IP to win back Gen Z men amid Marvel Lucasfilm struggles. Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty aren't the only ones looking for a prince. Leadership at Walt Disney Studios has been pressing Hollywood creatives in recent months, multiple sources tell Variety, for movies that will bring young men back to the brand in a meaningful way. Young men is defined here by sources of ages 13 to 28, aka Gen Z. First, every film studio is looking for better ways to convert young audiences into habitual moviegoers. Numerous studies show that Gen Z men, in particular, are a lonely, gaming-obsessed group who were hampered in their formative years by COVID-19 lockdowns. Not the easiest segment to grasp. But what's surprising producers, writers, and other partners in the larger industry is that Disney has been calling for original concepts to lure the demo back to the movies. This is the same Disney whose multi-billion-dollar content engines, Marvel and Lucasfilm, has sated men of all ages over almost 2 decades since the company acquired them. The sources say Disney has been seeking new IP and pitches such as splashy global adventures and treasure hunts, as well as seasonal fare-like films for the Halloween corridor. The calls come as the Star Wars machine struggles to produce any film project, and the superhero genre sheds audiences by the minute. While two insiders say the mandate to recruit young males goes as high as the C-suite, the task primarily has fallen on David Greenbaum, the former Searchlight Pictures co-head brought on in 2024 to run Disney's live-action film business. That label has been sorely lacking in guy-leaning fare like the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise for nearly 10 years. Studio insiders say the property is in active development, though not in its last reported iteration involving Margot Robbie, to say nothing of the lackluster attempt to reboot and hand off Indiana Jones in 2023, which earned $383 million worldwide on a $300 million budget before marketing cost. A Disney source says that movies for Gen Z men are part of an overall strategy across all labels, but no more urgent than any other quadrant. Greenbaum recently hired Daria Kirkhick, the savvy former Paramount Pictures co-chief, to assist in this effort. Greenbaum is beloved by talent but has largely existed in the prestige indie sphere, while Kirkhick separated films from franchises like Sonic the Hedgehog, A Quiet Place, and Smile. Some think the push for this demographic is simply Greenbaum trying to put his stamp on live action. Yet numerous power players who spoke with Variety see something ominous in the tea leaves. When the execution is correct, Disney's sweet spot at the movies has been millennials, that generation rapidly consuming classic vault titles like The Lion King, 101 Dalmatians, and Lilo and Stitch as kids. Now they bring their children in droves to see live-action reboots. This year's billion-dollar grosser, Lilo and Stitch, over-indexed with men and boys, Disney previously said. Gen Z is a different story. Built-in interest is not nearly as guaranteed for such an audience, which propelled Warner Brothers, a Minecraft movie, to nearly $1 billion haul. That was a game Gen Z played as very small kids. Not to mention the euphoric viral moments it created for young men filming key moments inside multiplexes and sharing them on platforms like TikTok. As it stands, Disney is in line with Sony Pictures and Paramount in its market share for Gen Z, 10% of ticket buyers in 2024. That's 2 points above Universal and 2 points below Warner's. But Disney is not leaving the job of courting Gen Z entirely up to the film group. Concurrent to Greenbaum's hire, the corporation bought a $1.5 billion equity stake in gaming juggernaut Fortnite, which will incorporate Disney's iconic staple of characters. The two sources say Disney does not, however, enjoy movie rights to Fortnite itself, which would seem a no-brainer in luring Gen Z to theaters. Yes, Disney was the unrefuting king of the box office last year. It will win again this year, with two films potentially crossing the $1 billion mark, Avatar: Fire and Ash and Zootopia 2. Four movies from the Disney labels have grossed more than $1 billion in the past 16 months. No other studio has won in that time frame. So it's staggering to rival studios and deal makers that Disney is looking to blaze new trails after years of being the envy of the town, having counted for so long on sure things from the worlds of Iron Man and the Jedi. Disney's CEO Bob Iger confirmed as much on a quarterly earnings, call this month, saying his film group won't favor existing IP over original material. The priority, Iger said, is to put out great movies, while Disney Studios declined to provide comment for this story. Much has been written about the narrowing audience for superhero movies. The performance of Marvel's latest release, Fantastic Four: First Steps, which aimed to launch yet another superhero franchise led by Pedro Pascal and Vanessa Kirby, failed to meet expectations. That's despite good reviews, a promising opening weekend, and the full attention of Marvel czar Kevin Feige. Star Wars has not produced a film in 7 years. A big screen adaptation of Disney Plus hit The Mandalorian is coming next year. On top of one top film executive at a Disney rival says every studio should be looking for originals, as sequels and reboots continue to exhaust the culture, even if they're packing in moviegoers in the short term. I never thought I'd say it, the exec muses about the Magic Kingdom's Boy Troubles, despite its gem box office iconic IP, but it looks like Disney is going to have to start trying. Okay, I'm gonna stop it right there. But yeah, that is pretty much like the bulk of it. And yeah, and it's kind of when reading this and hearing other people's thoughts about this, I can't help but think about the same situation with like in politics with certain Democrats talking about like how do we win back the male voters. Well, first and foremost, that you put too much stock into trying to win females. The female demographic was always there, but you're buying boy brands. It's no different from what's going on with the video game market, comic books, going all the way down to freaking commercials, where you can't help but see that it's super, for at least, maybe not counting this year so much because, there's been like a turn, but definitely following like the past handful of years. Hell, not even going as far back as 2020, but going as far back as 2018, at the earliest. And it's just uh, some kind of cultural zeitgeist at the time where uh, you got activists in certain spaces they should not belong, where they pushing certain agendas, and you can't help but see it play out. We couldn't see it. I mean, certain people kind of pointed it out early on, but they got shooed away as conspiracy theorists or incels or misogynists and all the other stuff. They got shooed away and hand waved away. But now that we got the benefit of time on our hands and we can actually see everything play out and we can give proper testing and see, like, yeah, they were right, because you put too much. Not to say like you can't have female characters or female led characters in certain things, but you put so much stock into propping up female characters, you got so lazy. Certain writers behind, just going to talk about Disney for right now, but it's in multi studios that was doing this because that's where the money was blowing. Because they don't care about, like, males or females. They just want to make sure they get as much butts and seats for these movies. But for the sake of the argument, they were so concerned trying to make sure we got to win the female audience. Let's try to. Maybe I'm thinking like they saw the success of. You can argue they might saw the success of the first Wonder Woman movie, so they just like, okay, it made $1 billion. Let's try to make sure we get more female led this and that and the third. But here's the thing: it isn't the issue in and of itself to have female superheroes like Captain Marvel. Her in and of itself wasn't a bad idea. The execution and the purpose behind it was the problem. You didn't give it, the character, any substance. Nothing, or at least feels in general. You're trying to replace the old guard, first thing. And then you, in order to make, the audience, make the character appear to the audience that, oh, this female character is super cool, super smart, super great, because you make everyone else around her, specifically the males around this character, appear man-hating or incompetent. And that is the major problem. From all media facets, from politics and commercials, all this stuff, you're putting down men to prop up the girls. That's happening a lot. I remember this Bill Maher segment months ago. He's talking about how that you can't treat men across the board like either incompetent or monsters. There's more to it to males than that. Males are simple. When you making a film, people, by and large, males, I've been rewatching a lot of James Bond films, and I mentioned it in my reviews recently. Guys want to be him. Women like to be with them. The women will be there because they like looking at hunky, masculine men saving the damsel. Not saying like the women got to be weak or stupid or anything like that. Nobody's saying that. But you're overcorrecting. You're complicating things. It's not really that complicated. You're trying too hard to win the female demographic by making these women girl bosses, and that's annoying. It got to the point where it got so annoying and eye rolly and cringy because you don't want to look like you're depicting these girls weak or any type of facet. You kind of obliterating the whole notion of a hero's journey. Part of that, you gotta have these characters to struggle, male or female. But if you right now, Ray Palpatine is like the poster child of Mary Sue's. None of the stuff in her films, she barely struggled. She just gets stuff just because she just get it. She fixes the Millennium Falcon. Okay, I don't think in it of itself is a problem that she figured out a way to fix the Millennium Falcon in Force Awakens. But how she went about doing it is the overall problem most people was having at that time. They wasn't being misogynistic. They was pointing out a serious problem, but because certain people on the left, especially in California, they only filtered that because it didn't feel good and didn't feel nice that we point out the fact that this girl just kind of got stuff and handed to. It's like, oh, you're just hate females in movies. No, idiot. Listen to what they're actually saying. Not to say there isn't those little segment of people that are, misogynists and stuff like that. They won't go to see these movies in the first place. Where people are vocalizing are by and large people who took a good, honest faith attempt at watching these things and sussing out issues that they're vocalizing, so that way next time around you can kind of course correct, so you can make sure that this is a well-rounded character. Sure, you can have Rey fix the Millennium Falcon, but have her, during crunch time, have her try to, get some things, first two attempts kind of fail. It gets off from a rough start. It's kind of like, trying to rev the engine, but it keeps stalling or something like that. It's, it takes time. If she just looks through it and within a minute, boom, fix, then what is this? Okay? Yeah, women, and I'm trying to speak for women, but the females that I follow, most of them very reasonable, understand nuances, even point out, look, it's pandery. You're once again, you're trying too hard, and you're trying to, and you gotta gut a lot of these studios. Not even just with Disney. You gotta gut a lot of these studios with anybody who got any type of activism in them, who can't leave their politics at the door, and bring back the veteran animators and writers that you pushed away, fired, let go, however you want to frame it, because they didn't want to kneel at the altar of wokeness. And it's like, no, we want to actually create and come up with some original ideas, some nuanced ideas to get people not only entertained, but they can learn something. But if you're trying to put the forefront of gender politics or all this that Barbie long-winded speech to preach to you, people shut down. We go to we play video games, we go to movies, we watch TV shows to be entertained. Now, not to say you can't have certain themes to it, but that should be secondary or thirdary behind just making up a good story with, complex characters and a well-written script. But people behind Disney, specifically, are half-assing it. And at a certain point, they're not even half-assing it, they're third-assing it. they got lazy. They didn't want to actually put, well, at least, like I said, there's certain people you hired, they're just political activism. They ain't have the, for the sake of the argument, let's say they went to college for like screenwriting or something like that. They haven't been in the industry long enough to learn from the feat of the veterans that have been there throughout the 80s, 90s, and the early 2000s. Because they knew how to write, great stories like, Toy Story or the original Lion King, or Princess and the Frog. Great example. Princess and the Frog, if you remember that is a female-led story. What separated Tatiana from certain girl bosses of recent years? Well, she had a goal, first and foremost. She wanted to open up her own restaurant. She came across a prince who was turned into a frog by this voodoo sorcerer. And she attempted to kiss him in order to turn him back into a prince. But the whole true love thing is in this mix, which is a big deal to a lot of female audience. They soak up love and, romance like a sponge. Why do you think a lot of things that they watch are like, the Bachelorette and Love Island? They like romance. They like the drama behind it. That's why they like these grew up watching these Disney fairy tales, because there's the central plot more often than not are romances. Guys watch it because of the funny that's involved, the comedy that's involved, the action that is involved, the adventure. There's adventure in Princess and the Frog. There's comedy in Princess and the Frog. And of course, we want to be that prince to go get the hot princess. And the girls want to be the princess to get got by the prince. To live happily ever after and get swept off their feet. That's, they're usually like a walk in the park for Disney. But you lost that. Tatiana, of course, the backdrop is in like around like the 40s-ish era, where in the South, where obviously racism would have been like a prevalent, like I said, is a backdrop. If Princess and the Frog was made today, that will be constantly at the forefront. Her getting that restaurant would have probably been immediate, and rather than being the overall goal to end the film, to feel like it's a triumph. She got that. The backdrop of the era, you drop certain hints where you don't hold the audience hands. You let them figure it out. Whereas when she's talking with those people that she's trying to buy the property from, drops little word cues to indicate, they are scoffing at the idea of a black girl buying a business and running her own diner and stuff like that, a restaurant. But and they get their comeuppance, but there's no lecture behind it. There's no strong black female who's tell that white man that I'm not your, like, none of that crap. She has a white best friend that she grew up with that by today, if it was written today, would have the white girl be like racist and try to sabotage her love. But no, she was like she and her father, even though her father was, her father employed the mom to be like the nanny, but there was no indication of any type of racism. They seem really like each other, treat each other like family. Uh, and like that best friend is a true best friend. I really watched that. She is like a true best friend. These are layered characters. Uh, they're actually friends, and the white girl goes out her way to make sure that she not only fixed the curse, but willing to kiss a frog for her friend, so her friend can have true love and all this other stuff. There's so much going on with that film that it is beloved for a reason. Now compare that to something like Wish. We're supposed to be celebrating Disney's like 100, not 100 years, 200 years, something like that. It was celebrating a milestone, and it is the most critically hated film in a long while. And you got this villain who just a villain out of nowhere. The songs are mediocre. You can't compare any of those songs in Wish to something like Almost There from Princess and the Frog. And getting me started with the animation. The animation in Princess and the Frog is vastly superior compared to this style of animation they clearly was trying to do like a Into the Spider-Verse thing, but once again they cutting corners. Princess of Frog, was meant for everybody. They're not excluding any boys. There's too many things out there in the past handful of years that was excluding the male audience because they thought the money was in the female audience. But mostly males buy these things. Mostly males take girls out on dates to see these things. Mostly males are shipping out the funds to go see these things, play these things, read these things. More often than not, they ain't the females. And all these things were originally meant for guys. And just a happy byproduct, women, found some enjoyment. Nobody stated at any point, George Lucas at no point was ostracizing any females to partake in watching Star Wars. Women got on board just by osmosis. They love Princess Leia, right down from her white gown to the slave Leia outfit, which are still being cosplayed to this day, despite like people thinking like it's kind of offensive. It's a good outfit. Women thought to this day think it's still hot. Princess Leia to this day is considered one of the most iconic female characters in the movie history, right along with Sarah Connor, right along with Ellen Ripley. One of the greatest female characters in pop culture history, right up there with Tomb Raider. But, at that time, when those characters were created, they wasn't girl bosses. They were, like Sarah Connor. She was a diner waitress. They got thrown into this war with machines, and realizing her future son was going to be a leader that she would ultimately teach and train. So by the time he grew up, he will rise against the machines and take them down. She was an integral part of this. But she didn't, she wasn't a badass right out the gate. That comes in a sequel, where she went and was taught by other teachers, mostly male, how to how to train with weapons and set up traps and all this other stuff. Pretty much living off the grid for most of her life and her child's life, so he can be ready. But it wasn't right out the gate. She didn't know anything. But what was it, Genesis or something like that, where they kind of try to ruin all that stuff by get the lady from Game of Thrones, the Queen of Dragons. Now all of a sudden they kind of nix all that because it didn't look good, or it's like you can't have these females being trained by any males, especially white males, because it didn't look, very PC that way. Because God forbid that a woman trains in anything that is typically male dominated, so of course there will be typically male teachers. It's not misogynist to learn from a guy. So, long and short of it is, it's just studios like Disney used to know this stuff, but because they, there's certain level of gatekeeping that needed to be around, because now when the floodgates start opening up, you let certain bad faith individuals into these spaces and they're mucking with things. You got things like DEI and all this other stuff where it's like there had to be certain level of guardrails, because there is, a particular flow when it comes to creation. Sure, in general, we all would love to have like a female-led film, but there's still checks and balances. There's still like a formula to this. We got like the hero's journey and all this other stuff. There's still a certain bullet points we still gotta hit in order to make it a hit. We can't just have a female and expect you to like it, and if you don't, no matter what is written, you're the problem. No, you can't do that. So now you're scrambling. You should have came to this conclusion at least 5 years ago. Now you're scrambling to try to, because your pockets got hit. I was like, oh, we got to win back the male audience. No, duh, you got to win back the male audience, because they're the ones that mostly going. It didn't help you call them incels or treat them like, garbage, like in the She-Hulk TV show. Where it's like the main bad guy is like incels, and you treat them like a joke, the male audience like a joke. Of course, I'm assuming you're not talking about all males, but it's just like any males that you think there's going to be talking crap about you. You think you're clever trying to circumvent all that stuff, like, oh, well, you know they're going to be talking about this because, oh, God forbid we have a female She-Hulk, so we better break this down and make them like the butt of the joke. And it's like, and it wasn't even funny, by the way. It's like, She-Hulk has always been a great character in the comics, but now you girl bossified her, and you got her saying this nonsense about like, oh, I lived a life, and control my anger more infinitely than you. Incredible Hulk, the guy who in the comics got physically abused by his father, who's some kind of psychopath, and created a split personality from all the trauma that you try to manage, and then with the gamma radiation, and now you got like multiples with like Joe Fixit and all this other stuff. Oh yeah, but you getting catcalled, every once in a while. Oh yeah, that's infinitely worse. It's all that stuff. It started to pile up where whatever side of the political aisle you're on, now it's reached to a point where everybody's starting to notice, but only a certain segment of people who foresaw this was ignored and clowned because of it. And it's just a shame that, I guess, better late than never, but it's just, now you're going to be scrambling to try to fix this, especially right at the time when some biggest movies that you're coming down the pipeline is coming in within a 2-year time frame, with Mandalorian Grogu and coming off the heels of a kind of crap last season, which kind of turned into the Bo-Katan show, when it's supposed to be about Din Djarin, once again trying to appeal to a female audience and not a boy brand, which, Mando, like the whole Mandalorian thing is a very kind of like a guy-centric kind of fan base that really likes this character. Of course, there's a segment of females who like this too. And Bo-Katan in general is a great character, but you girl boss a fighter. And you kind of have her taking over the show. And then, don't get me started. Like, speaking of Star Wars, I mentioned the whole Luke Skywalker thing. You kind of, like, instead of being like a proper mentor to Rey, can't have that. Have him trashing, like, Jedi, and then instead of, having all throughout this entire sequel trilogy, you kill them off quickly. I don't say quickly, but like within the second movie, and living like a hermit and like doubting himself when he's supposed to have been like a hero, the optimistic hero, and you have him looking like a disillusioned hermit. And people grew up with Luke Skywalker, and he's one of those childhood heroes that all young boys look up to, similar how we look up to like Superman or Batman. This guy, set a tone and set a foundation for young boys to aspire to. And you effectively took a lot of the things that guys like in a lot of these franchises, and you eroded them and make it seem like, we don't like those characters because they from an era that isn't appealing by today's standards. Can't have this because he's come from an era that's like this. So we gotta shut that down and come up with our own thing that's more culturally appropriate. You're for the vague sensation of progressiveness. It's sad, and like I said, better late than never. But I'm concerned it is kind of late, because now you got like the Doom, the next 2 Avengers movies, and the Spider-Man Brand New Day coming up in the next few years, and I'm not sure how quickly can you pivot where you're coming off the heels of bad projects. Now, of course, in my personal opinion, there are a few things within that sea of crap that I personally enjoyed, but the ratio is all off. It's like you made more Thor: The Dark Worlds compared to the first Avengers film. I liked Loki. I liked Hawkeye. I like Werewolf by Night. I love Spider-Man No Way Home. Yeah, that's just me personally. But there's a chunk in there that I enjoyed from phase 4 and 5. However, that is minuscule by the overall crap that we have to sift through. With Star Wars, I like Star Wars Visions. Tales of the Jedi was pretty fun. Didn't like Empire all that much. It's usually the animated projects usually do better. But in terms of their live action, I like Skeleton Crew. It's a shame that it got bogged down or got hit with unnecessary fallout from the Crapolite, where once again there's like a good example of why you should not try to trying to go so hard trying to appeal to females, by you got a lot of females in there. You got so many people from every culture imaginable in this film, and it's like, even in the second episode, because I could not continue after like the second episode. I could not. It was so the storyline and the writing was so terrible. And yes, that DEI woke crap was so prominent. I was like, I was choking on the bile of it that I could not continue. So I had to, catch reviews of it just to see where it went, because I could not stomach it. It was so bad. It's one of the worst TV shows I've seen in general, not even just with Star Wars. But it's just like, I think that was a turning point for a lot of people when it comes to like woke Disney and just wokeness in general. And I know people they hate the word woke, but black people started and it meant something completely different, but it got co-opted and it turned into something that you probably didn't intend it to turn into, but it is here now, and it is a perfect label to describe the kind of crap you put out into the media. There's certain things that just let's just say I was watching Acolyte. In the second episode, there's like a heavyset Jedi Padawan there. Didn't, serve anything. It's like, why is this guy there? I hate to, point out, but I was trying to simplify it just to get like a sense of what I'm talking about here. You throwing in things that doesn't make sense to the overall story. You kind of like, you're trying to hit a quota to satisfy certain studios or certain people that control things like who gets nominated in certain award shows or whatever. You got to have a certain segment of women. Got to have a certain number of people of color. And like, if you're having a story, about, let's say, Vikings. Yeah, Shogun. Shogun is a perfect example. After the Shogun TV show ended, and it's quickly acclaimed. I love that freaking show. It's a Japanese Game of Thrones, pretty much. But then you get certain people, of the left, typically, crying about like, oh, why can't we have like a black samurai? There's a black samurai. We got like the guy who only showed up in like a blip in history, but that counts. And it's like, no, you're nitpicking certain things just to justify you want to throw in black people in an era they weren't prominent in. It's like, you can make the argument for white people to be in there because they, from like spice traders or just like whatever, Spaniards or whomever, that would integrate or coexist with Japanese people of this particular time in history. But let's say because they saying they're supposed to make some kind of like second season. I'm not sure how true that is. But let's just say there was a second season. And all of a sudden, through the majority of Japanese people and like a certain small segment of white people, all of a sudden there's an Indian guy showing up. And it's like, why is he there? There's no reason for, that interaction there. Not only an Indian, it's like an Indian queer woman who's non-binary, who doesn't, or probably not use those words, but say like, I choose not to identify as male or female, or what is truly male or female. You write in certain dialogues like that, and that is what people are talking about when it comes to like just woke. And is annoying. I get off kind of off the rails here. This is kind of like a getting long-winded, so I'm going to end the video with this conclusion. Hopefully, there will be a sea change within the following year going forward, where they get back to basics and try to appeal to a male demographic, because the female audience will be there. Like I said, just by osmosis, they will just automatically come. There's females who like uh, 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 crap, not Mandalorian, the other, Boba Fett. Jeez. There's women who love Boba Fett and hate the way that he is treated in his own show. So when we get back to basics, I'm talking about like, giving characters like that respecting what came before. In like 90% of its facets, honoring legacy, what set up what we got now. Don't piss on the history. Males love adventure. We love rescuing damsels, the hot chicks, not bloated messes with different color hair with attitude problems. Hot women like the Sydney Sweeneys or Doja Cats of the world. Some about like hot women like that. We want to envision ourselves in those male characters rescuing hot women like that and getting the girl and defeating the bad guys. Simple stuff. And women want to be those girls. And sure, they can have their badass moments too. Not like we never had badass women like Trinity or Sarah Connor or something like that. It was a thing. But you didn't have to try hard about it. As long as you written them well from the jump for the specific purpose that led from A to B to C to D. That we can follow through line. Don't just get her to D and don't, explain how she got to D. Just accept that she got to D. Otherwise, you're the problem. That is, something that we got to roll it back. Take it back to basics. All right. I kind of meandered long enough. It's kind of like getting towards like nearly an hour. But hopefully this, more people see this and changes will be made. But let me know in the comments below what you guys think about this. Because, this is, God, can't believe well over a decade. And they just now coming around to realizing, okay, maybe this is like, they didn't, come to a conclusion by the goodness of their heart or listen to certain people. It's because their dollars got hurt. Now they got to make a sea change. Well, you shouldn't have changed it in the first place. Everything was working fine. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But anyway, I will see you guys in a little bit for some future content and reaction videos and some gameplays later on today. So I will see you guys soon. Peace.